Many are upset over the Jake Paul and Mike Tyson fight, with some people claiming that it was rigged because many people bet a lot of money and they lost a lot of money. Allegedly, there's this script that got leaked showing how the fight was supposed to go down between Mike Tyson and Jake Paul.
So guess what? Netflix just took legal action against Mike Tyson and Jake Paul over their scripted circus. I mean, the fight. Seriously, after 6 months of hype, millions of fans on the edge of their seats, and what do we get? About faker than a reality TV season finale. Did they honestly think nobody would catch on? It was so obvious as a gone.
Tyson versus Jake Paul just got Netflix sued. People got big problems.
So, what's the big fix here? Let's be honest, the damage is done. It's not just your reputations that took a hit. You managed to drag the whole sport of boxing down with you. Impressive, really. At this point, even an apology would feel like part of the script. Bravo, guys. Truly top tier.
Didn't deserve it, but he got there through business, and I get that. For people like me who value what boxing is supposed to be about, right? The reason I had a whinge about Tyson Fury not fighting the best that time, I care about.
Fans had been salivating for months, eagerly waiting for the ultimate showdown between the legendary Mike Tyson and Jake Paul, the YouTuber turned boxer. The anticipation was off the charts. Everyone was counting down the seconds until we'd finally see Paul get knocked out so hard he'd be back in the YouTube comments trying to figure out how to make a comeback video.
It is two athletes getting a payday and nothing else. And from the highlights, using that word real loosey-goosey, that I watched of it, there wasn't even really much of a fight there.
So what did we actually get? A circus. A scripted, glitchy disaster of a performance that left us all wondering if Netflix thought we were born yesterday. I mean, we all knew something was off when the most hyped punches of the decade barely landed. From the very start, I said there'd be no knockouts in this fight, and I was dead right. No knockouts. In fact, there was barely anything worth watching at all. As I said from the beginning, this was just a cash grab. And let's not forget the payouts. Jake Paul walked away with a cool $40 million for this epic showdown, while Mike Tyson, who once turned his fists into legends, got a humble $20 million. It's almost like Tyson tossed his legacy aside like last season's sweater. A quick cash grab, a few punches, and boom, instant payday. It's the kind of deal that makes you question everything you know about sports, money, and dignity. And what does Netflix get in return? Eyeballs, pay-per-view cash, and viral attention that makes you wonder if they even care about sports at all. Forget The Witcher or Stranger Things. Their new hit show, How to Get People to Pay for Fake Fights 101.
Is this fight real?
It's as real as all the money that's being bet. Yes, that's a qualified yes. There were certain differences from conventional fights or conventional male fights. There are 2-minute rounds.
The whole thing felt like one of those cringeworthy reality shows where you know it's scripted, but you can't look away because you're hooked. Netflix doesn't care. They've got us exactly where they want us, glued to our screens, wondering what circus act they'll roll out next. Who needs real sports when you can just fake a fight and rake in the views, right? Nice move, Netflix. You really know how to catch in on a disaster. And now, Netflix is acting like they had no part in it. Really? You didn't know Tyson and Jake Paul might have just played a little let's pretend for a paycheck?
Citing over 100,000 people complaining online, the lawsuit claimed that the boxing fans along with go to my Instagram.
Because the fans? Oh, they knew something was off. The glitches, the lack of punches, the strange energy in the air. It wasn't just bad streaming. It felt like watching a poorly written soap opera, except instead of tears, the fans were outraged.
People keep emailing me and asking me, what did I think about the Jake Paul versus Mike Tyson fight? The reason I didn't want to talk about the fight and the reason I was so adamant that I wouldn't be talking about the fight while it was going on during stream is because it's just...
They'd been waiting for this moment for months, and what did they get? A poorly executed, possibly staged mess that had viewers throwing their popcorn at the screen. Now, with Netflix trying to dodge responsibility and point fingers at Tyson and Paul, fans aren't buying it. Cue the lawsuit. Netflix has been abandoned by a couple billion people in the past 24 hours, quote, to voter lockdown at the onset of the pandemic, close quote.
I do believe it was scripted, and I believe that Tyson was certainly held back. Look, I'm a fighter, and I can see it.
And trust me, the popcorn isn't the only thing being thrown around now. If the script didn't play out like that, maybe it was all just a setup. Who would have guessed, right? So Netflix went ahead and sued Mike Tyson and Jake Paul for the scripted fight, and honestly, it's well-deserved. Mike Tyson, the guy who once had the world trembling at the thought of his punches, now finds himself dragged into this mess with a YouTuber who thinks boxing is just about throwing a few slow punches for cash.
I'm glad to see that, because if I hadn't saw that, I would be worried that this fight may not even be for real.
Tyson, my dude, you were a legend. A legend. And what did you do? You tossed that legendary history aside like an old ratty sweater you couldn't even be bothered to donate. And then there's Jake Paul, a guy who's convinced the world that getting punched for a living is somehow a career path. If there was any justice in the world, you both should have been sued for ruining boxing.
Catches him flush on the chin. Tyson's leg buckle and he drops to the canvas. Then he's out for the count, but Tyson, despite his warrior heart, cannot beat the 10 count. Winner Jake Paul by KO. What?
Well, KO? What KO? The real reason Mike Tyson and Jake Paul turned a fight into a Showtime circus was money. Tyson, a man who once made millions by terrifying opponents, suddenly found himself in the ring. And why? Because Netflix came along with a fat paycheck.
I believe that he was making the money he says he's making. Showtime Boxing wouldn't have gone out of business, and Showtime would have made sure they...
Jake Paul, the guy who somehow turned being a YouTube villain and punching people in the face into a career. I mean, come on, Jake. What are you even doing? You're out here making millions pretending to be a boxer and getting paid for this kind of nonsense.
Somewhat rigged. Now, there's varying degrees of arguments. The first is that Tyson was required to complete 8 rounds for money. Some say that's how it was rigged. He's not going to go all out to shut down Jake Paul because he wants $20 million.
But here's the problem. In their quest for a quick payday, they both made a mockery of real sports. This wasn't about putting on a show, it was about doing the absolute bare minimum and getting away with it. Sure, Netflix probably told them, just pretend it's a fight. Nobody will care. But here's the thing. We care. We're watching Tyson, whose biggest skill now seems to be making viral videos, and Jake, the guy who needs a script to beat up an old man. Now that's a low point.
Tyson fight.
Interesting.
Script. How so? What do you mean by
just
script?
Weird. It's just
like scripted in what way?
No, I don't know.
The fallout hits, the script leaks, conspiracy theories explode, and suddenly everyone's questioning everything. Was this fight even real? Is Netflix now just in the business of faking everything?
Well, X has spoken. The fight was scripted. Everyone is talking about this on X, and the script was actually leaked on X a few days.
Well, Tyson and Paul certainly helped to open that can of worms, all for a quick payday. Bravo, guys. You both turned boxing into a joke and got paid for it. Now, you're getting slapped with a $50 million lawsuit for your trouble. Guess what? You totally earned it. Well done. Not only was the fight a bust, but Netflix failed miserably too, and now they're facing a lawsuit that's got everyone watching. The lesson here? Don't promise us a fight and deliver a nightmare, because when people are paying for an event, they kind of expect to see one, you know.
Friend Mike Tyson tweeted that he almost died over the summer. He said, he had a bunch of blood transfusions, just had to fight to get healthy, and then his performance yesterday against Jake Paul. Just your thoughts on what we saw.
Mike Tyson was right, and I was wrong.
The public reaction? Ugly. If Netflix thought they could slide by unnoticed, they were in for a rude awakening. Fans didn't just tweet their anger. They were ready to burn down the internet. The fight? A disaster. The glitches? A joke. Honestly, it was hard to tell if we were watching a boxing match or a poorly scripted Netflix original. People were asking, is this real? Or did Netflix just decide to make another disaster movie? Spoiler alert, it wasn't even good enough for that. And then came the social media storm. Fans went wild, faster than Netflix's buffering icon, calling the whole thing likely the worst pond, everything, from a joke to the worst event ever. Was the fight even real, or were we all just pawns in some weird Netflix reality show?
People keep emailing me and asking me, what did I think about the Jake Paul versus Mike Tyson fight? The reason I didn't want to talk about the fight and the reason I was so adamant that I wouldn't be talking about the fight while it was going on during stream is because it's just...
Influencers were already plotting how to monetize the disaster because, hey, at least someone was cashing in on this mess. If this is the future of boxing, where every fight is a scripted spectacle, fans might just start punching their own TVs in frustration.
This is currently being sued over their Jake Paul-Mike Tyson fight. And it's not because people think the fight was rigged, though I have questions, and that's what we'll get into. It's because it didn't work, and a lot of people were buffering.
This lawsuit? It could be a game changer for Netflix and every other streaming platform out there. If this thing sticks, it could open the floodgates for more lawsuits every time Netflix messes up a live event. Imagine millions of fans, popcorn in hand, ready to watch the next big thing, only for their stream to freeze mid-punch. Do you think they'll just shrug it off? Yeah, right. Netflix could be facing a lot more legal headaches in the future. And let's not even get started on the implications for boxing itself. Will the audience even care about the difference anymore, or will they just tune in for the next train wreck?
Everything, but my kids, to my children, I'm nobody. But that night they're gonna find out their father's very special.
His balance seemed off, and he struggled to...
About the future of celebrity boxing and pay-per-view events? Buckle up. If this is the new trend, we're about to witness an entire generation of athletes who are more famous for being famous than for actually knowing how to throw a punch. Expect more big-name celebs cashing in on these glorified slap fights where the real competition takes a backseat to who's got the best script, the juiciest drama, and the flashiest pay-per-view numbers. Real athletes, they're going to be shoved aside, replaced by YouTube stars who can barely remember their own punchlines. But when do audiences finally wake up and realize they're just watching actors in gloves? When the real talent gets drowned out by all the staged nonsense, will anyone even care about the authenticity of sports anymore? Are we about to live in a world where we have to Google, "Is this fight real?" before every match? If Netflix doesn't clean up its act fast, this could be just the beginning of a much larger mess. And as for boxing, who knows? The next real fight might be just as scripted as this one. We could be headed for a future where the only genuine thing in the ring is the sweat on the fighter's brow, and even that might be CGI.